Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and however you may be. Good morning. Good morning from Denver, Colorado. My name is Dave Wilber, and my friends call me the Turfgrass Zealot. And I'm here. We're live. We're live, and it looks like things are running well here. So that's good. We have music from Epidemic Sound today, copyright-free music that we can use and not be busted for. And this particular category is called Focus Beats, and I kind of like it. Hi. Gosh, it's just good to see people drifting in. And, as always, feel free to use the chat. It's yours to speak your mind, ask a question, whatever. And before we get going this morning, I just want to say something really from my heart. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed at the support that we're receiving in the form of you guys watching, listening, participating, and all that stuff. I'm humbled and I'm grateful. And I quite frankly never expected to see it. Well, I always expect great things, but I guess I never expected to see it kind of do what it's doing. And there's been some good talk. My inbox has had some great DMs and emails about it all. And we're thankful. I'm thankful. Me and the bear here are thankful. And I'm overwhelmed by that. And I'm trying not to be emotional here. But it sure seems like that whatever I'm doing right. Oh, hopefully that didn't blank out your screen like it just did mine. At any rate, thank you. Very cool. I don't really spend a lot of time counting the numbers. I mean, I kind of glance at them. I'm not going to say I don't ever look at them, but I definitely have seen some things growing. And I like that, and I'm happy about that, and I'm motivated by a lot of other things besides numbers, but it's nice to see that somehow this is all working. And again, the quality of my inbox, and there's been a couple of criticisms, and I love that too, right? So here we are, July 10th, 2021. And I was thinking about what I was doing last July, what all of us were doing last July, trying to figure out the world according to COVID. And it seems like we're doing a little bit of the same. July. If you've ever held a hose in your hand in just about any climate, you know that July can be tough. And it just comes with all kinds of abnormal life habits, doesn't it, in our business? I mean, of course, signifies the end of spring and the warm, kind of swampy ass revelation that summer is actually here. For many of us, we're going to bed when it's light and we're getting up when it's dark, dressing quietly, slipping out of the house, apartment, tent, teepee, whatever it may be, trying not to wake anyone else up. A 3 or a 4 still on the clock. Your neighbors probably hate you as you start your vehicle, your truck, whatever it is, within earshot of their open windows. You turn on the tunes and try to escape before they throw eggs and rocks at you. It's July. Into work we go. Eyes coming in the door behind you at work are bleary, like you're trying to keep yours from being, and you wonder how much, if any, they slept. Particularly on those weekend mornings. Those of you listening to me this morning, you may have experienced this. And you find yourself becoming the human breathalyzer for the usual suspects, the ones that you know don't know how to go to bed. And if the air around them doesn't seem so flammable, you hand them anywhere between $2,000 and $50,000 worth of gear and send them into the early morning, usually with some kind of headlights, or maybe no lights at all. Perhaps there's a club event today. The whatever club, cup, the this and that medal round, or the something invitational. It possibly is meaningless, and yet it's everything. Mr. Williford Ball Picker is on the phone before sunrise. Did you remember to paint the zigzag line up the 15th fairway and the clown face on the 7th green? Sure, it was done last night before you left. And then you start to think about it. Did your assistant or intern actually handle this like they said they were going to? Is it finished? Are the coolers really out where they're supposed to be? Your blood runs cold for a moment. You jump on a cart. It's all good. The clown face is indeed a masterpiece. And it's July. I've never been one of those people trying to tell the world that our business is tougher than any other. Doing our business well is just like anything else. It requires dedication, technical know-how, on and on and on. A friend who's a police officer deals with life and death and health threats all the time on his shifts. And I can't imagine how it must feel. So I'm sure he probably thinks when I talk about dead grass or failed irrigation or bad green committee chairman, he probably laughs. And I get that. Making those kinds of comparisons, excuse my pronunciation, it's like stacking the deck chairs on the Titanic. It's just pointless. But you know, if any of you have ever had one of those July moments where it's going all wrong, you know. One July I asked the question on the TurfNet forums, how are you doing? And it created some great discussion. One of the respondents was pretty clear about superintendents not usually being happy. At least he questioned the definition of happy. I love that when they did that. And I was thinking back and I'm like, was I ever happy in July? When I was growing grass, it was just hard work. As a consultant, it was a lot of travel and a lot more hard work. Now, as a semi-retired communications / agronomy consultant / all the other hats that I wear, it's still hard work. I left the house every day last week before sunrise. Even the people that have figured out the work-life balance thing, you know, they know that if you kind of screw up and fall asleep in the wheel in July in any climate, it can be costly. I remember that discussion on TurfNet, and it was there were some gems. Sleep, ladies and gentlemen, you must sleep. I mean, if you got to go to bed when it's still light, get the mask on, whatever, get that sleep, and eat well, and exercise somehow. Even if you physically work hard. I know Chris Tritibas shared his kettlebell routine in one of his blog posts. I believe it was on Medium, and it's been a really good thing. Like, I like that kind of movement, right? Man, it's July, and you know what? August will come, and then September will come. It is what it is in July. And so if you want to go to war with it, if you want to fight with it, if you want to be gnarly about it, you're just going to be miserable. And that can lead you down a really bad path. And so I often ask in July, how are you doing? Maybe time to get some professional help if you feel like the world is caving in. Maybe time to reach out to some friends, possibly. Doesn't always have to be about professional help. Not everybody needs therapy. A lot of people do. More than you think. It's a good time to watch your staff. It's a good time to watch the people around you. How's it going? It's an easy question to ask. and watch their faces as much as you hear their words. There's no shame in seeking help before something bad happens, before that darkness really sets in. And if your perspective, is wrong, you're going to swing at some high pitches. And those unforced errors, the way that we do that can lead to some bad decisions, bad things, bad stuff. It can lead you to saying the wrong words to the wrong people. July, man. We must eat well, sleep as much as we can, balance the integration of work and life. I don't know. I don't do the work hard, play hard theory anymore. I believe in work-life integration. Exercise, meditate, practice the mindfulness things that we've all been talking about. Be spiritual. That's your inclination. Be realistic with yourself and those around you. Maybe this is what we call the new July. I don't know. I think so. Before you know it, July 2021 will be gone. It will be gone. It will be gone. It will be gone. Just like that clown face on that green that they just had to have for the ladies' invitational. I wrote this piece some time ago, what I just shared with you for my TurfNet blog. And as I went back to look at this, I saw a couple of the comments from old friends. One of them who passed away, John Scott. Many of you know John. Fantastic human. Like Kozak, the first superintendent that I ever spoke to. He also spoke up. Matt Crowthers spoke up. Crowther, say that wrong all the time. And I'm grateful for all of these people. I'm grateful for all of you. What are we listening to here? I thought we had a good thing going with these. Let's see if we can. There we go. Sometimes playlists and copyright-free music can be kind of funny. So, how's your July going? Now that I've read to you a morning story, how's your July going? Mine's going swimmingly. I'm actually involved with a local school district in getting some training in their transportation department, because I'm gonna help out with students a little bit this year. I'll probably talk about that more as it gets going. So it's been kind of cool, and it's that give back thing, right? Give back to the community kind of deal. Whoops, that was a toss to the trash can gone wrong. So yeah, I've been doing that this week. It's had me out of the house super early and out in the sun a lot. I was spending way too much time in the office, way too much time on the phone. And as much as I love talking to you all on the phone and whatnot, it can be a little bizarre reality being all alone. I was talking to the superintendent the other day who was talking to me about feeling all alone, yet he was surrounded with people, and we talked that through a little bit. I thought that was interesting, It's like, yeah, I have this whole staff that comes in, I got all this stuff going on, and I feel kind of lonely. A couple of weeks ago, a few of the young turfies invited me to have a safety meeting with them here in the Denver area. We had beers. I told stories way too much. We had a really good time. As some of you know, craft beer is one of my favorite things. And I don't know, we sat there for 4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours, and I drank 2 beers. It wasn't about the drinking. It was about the talking. It was about the people, man. And I don't know, this 50-something-year-old dude loves hanging around the young turfies. They the stories they tell, the things that they share about all that stuff, it reminds me so much of when I was growing up in the business. Hey, speaking of growing up in the business, and not to be a downer or anything like that, in fact, I want to say good things. I got word that Perry Dye passed away a few days ago. Perry Dye, Pete and Alice Dye's son. And when I was coming up in the business, Perry was super active as a designer, construction company owner, all that sort of stuff. And if you look at the number of names, and we were talking about this at the safety meeting, you look at the number of people and the names that come up through the Dye organization, right? Both under Pete and under Perry and with PB, and the influence that they had on our business, and particularly Perry in the Denver area. You know, so many people worked for Perry. Names like Jim Urbina and, you know, Tom Doak had a little stint with all of them. Bill Coor of Coor and Crenshaw worked for Pete. One of my classmates in school, Dennis Vogt, still a golf course superintendent here, started with the Dye organization. Rob Swedberg, one of the finest shapers that I've ever seen, a Dye guy. Neil and Eric Iverson both worked for Dye. Eric now with the Tom Doak organization. Neil, I haven't heard from Neil in a while. I don't know what Neil's doing. Last I heard he was in Dallas. I don't know. Haven't seen him in a bit. We haven't seen each other through the COVID thing. So many great people, so many great stories. I told the young turfies a couple of Pete stories and a couple of Perry stories, and you know, we have our little Perryisms, the little things that we told. Perry tried to convince me to go to Japan and grow grass and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things that I had to kind of get around is I didn't have the golf game. At the time, he wanted everybody to be 10 handicaps or lower. I don't think everybody had to be that, but that's one of the things he wanted. But I was off on other things. But we did a first tee program. So the first tee was that we did a small kids course in Sacramento, California. Turned one of their park areas into a you know, like with Cayman balls, right? Driving range, small kids thing. Harry donated the design. He donated Rob Swedberg's time. Rob came out and did the shaping. I kind of project managed the whole thing, and we built, I guess it was really the first of its kind in the country. There were 3 short holes and a driving range, and I believe it's still in operation today near the William Land Park Golf Course, the Land Park 9 in Sacramento, owned by the city, managed by Morton Golf. And then it was a fantastically fun Perry made it fun. You know, Perry made it fun. Wasn't a big deal to him, but he's like, hey, we'll do this, it'll be cool. It's awesome, right? I used to love seeing Perry at the national, at the GIS, I don't know, whatever we're calling it now. But every year Perry would have his plaid Architects Society coat on and a big bag full of information that he was picking up as he walked the aisles of the trade show. Sometimes with some of his family members, you know, Christina, some of those people, O'Brien, some of that crowd. Sometimes he'd be by himself. Sometimes he and Ann would be together, and I would always see them. He would always stop by a couple of the booths that I would hang out. We would have a quick conversation. Hi, Perry, how are you doing? I loved it when a couple of times when I was able to, I had dinner with he and Ann one night. Oh, this was years ago, when I was breezing through Denver. I don't know why. I don't know what we were talking about, some project or something, but I ended up having dinner with he and his wife, and he told some great stories about growing up with Pete and Alice Dye. You know, it was great. Anyway, it's sad to see that Perry passed away, and I don't really know the details, and I'm not sure I want to know them, but you know, if you have a moment, however your inclination is spiritually, just say a good word for Perry and for his family. I got a note from Jim Urbina this morning because we were sharing the information, and he says I got the email about this early this morning and a few phone calls from back east. Sad day. One thing I know about Perry, Jim said, he was proud of all of us. And that's true. And that's true. And I think Pete was as well. And yeah, man, it's, you know, I always used to laugh kind of at, you know, like I'd be around at some of the meetings and stuff when I was younger, and some of the old guys would be lamenting another old guy, and I didn't really get it, you know. And all I can say to you guys is this: when it starts to be your friends and acquaintances that are no longer with us, it takes on a different meaning. And we've seen a little bit of loss this year. John Scott, Perry Dye, a couple other folks, and that's just in the golf business. I've also had a little bit of, you know, that kind of stuff just in my general community. So yeah, yeah, tough stuff. Anyway, hats off to the great influence that Perry Dye has had on all of us. And if you were ever influenced by him in any way, or anyone who came out of the Dye organization in any way, you should be thankful. Be thankful for the pioneering, the leadership, the things that they all did. And I can honestly say, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people would say that they wouldn't be in the business if it wasn't for people like that. And more specifically, I'm sure there are a lot of people, especially in the construction and architecture world. I mean, if you look at the names, Tim Furness, Jim Urbina, Rob Swedberg, I mean, the Iverson brothers, so many people. I'm sure I'm missing a ton of people that, you know, Ken Zach. There's just names coming to my head, who Perry, you know, as young people said, get out there and build some golf courses, you know, get on it. We're going to Japan. We're going to go do this thing, you know? And it's like, okay. A lot of people answer that call and they did great with it. So there it is. That's the Perry Dye story. And I'm sorry to see that. I'm sure there will be a lot written about it in the next few days. There will be some good articles, and people like John Reitman and people like that will be writing those great newsy type things. And, you know, and if you don't know Perry, you never had to meet Perry or anything like that, and you'll see some pictures and some smiling faces and all that sort of stuff. The Society of Golf Course Architects had a very nice write-up that they posted yesterday, and hats off to them for taking good care of their members. Transition out of that, as Andy Staples had a great, I don't know, the Architect Society has a new PR kind of thing going on, and there was a great picture of Andy Staples and a quote, and you know I love Andy. And hats off to Andy Staples for all that. Build Smart Golf on Twitter. You want to do that. All right, well, I'm looking at the chat. Good morning, you guys. We have a bunch of us in here watching. Is there anything you all would like to add in chat? Please do that. I'm happy to do that. Let's go on to the next thing that I had on my list. So every once in a while I post some stuff on Twitter, and I don't do it necessarily just to get a reaction, but I'm always interested in the reaction, right? Very interested in the reaction. And I posted something because, you know, this weather situation that we've been in, and let's just talk about the weather from yesterday. And I'm speaking specifically yesterday. Now, first of all, there's some big fires burning in the Western US. The time-lapse photography and stuff, I saw this thing that is burning in Northern California, up in Lassen and Plumas counties, which is some pretty rugged territory way north. The pyrocumulus clouds that were building from that thing were unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I think I've told you guys, I love the weather, and I love being a student of the weather. And pyrocumulus, you know, coming from the weather that a fire builds itself, and I've never seen any kind of pyrocumulus. There's so much energy in those clouds. I've never seen any PC clouds like that move that fast, that built that high, that were that. It just was kind of stunning. What are they calling it? The sugar fire. It's a complex of fires, but if you have a chance, get online and look at some of that stuff if you want to study the pyrocumulus effect. But you know what happens is those things start making their own weather, and then they can't fight them, they can't fly them. becomes too dangerous to fly much. They can fly on the periphery and stuff, but not anywhere near the core of it. And it's like, it's like one guy who was in the aviation world said to me one time that it was kind of like, imagine a bomb that constantly goes off, but never stops going off. He used the word nuclear, but I don't know that that's necessarily accurate, but it was like the idea that this explosion is happening and it's constantly happening, right? And there's that much energy in it all. So, and then, we had some crazy records, Furnace Creek. And yeah, somebody asked me, there is a golf course in Death Valley in the is it still called the Furnace Creek Club? I don't know. We'll look that up maybe in a second. I don't want to get off track here. Squirrel. But Furnace Creek yesterday, 130 degrees recorded. Possibly the second highest temperature ever recorded on Earth. There. Grand Junction, Colorado, which is a medium large sized town in very western Colorado. I-70 runs through there on the way into Utah, and 107 yesterday. Record. Never seen that temperature recorded in all the times they've been keeping records, which I think I saw was well into the early 1900s. Never seen 170 degrees. 107, excuse me, not 17. 107 in Grand Junction, Colorado. And records broken all over the western U.S. An early season hurricane hammering parts of the East Coast right now. Wow. Crazy weather, man. Crazy weather. Tells me that that all of us probably need to expect the unexpected. I think so. Anyway, if you want to dive in a little bit deeper into what's going on with some of these western U.S. fires, it's pretty fascinating. The speed, the velocity, excuse me, and the ferocity of these things is unprecedented, and they're unfightable. They just, they got to get a kind of a containment thing going and just let it burn. And again, if you want to, look up pyrocumulus clouds and understand all that, it's nuts. And there are some big ones happening, and it's still relatively early in the year. And it comes down to resources. So yeah, a couple of these things pop off in Northern California, and then Idaho, Montana, all those those smoke jumper types are there, and not necessarily close to their own communities, and it just keeps going and going. Tough, man. It's just tough. And it's scary. It's scary to me as a person who spent most of his life in the Western US and traveled to a lot of arid places, and I love arid stuff. So anyway, what I wanted to get to was, I asked a question on Twitter, or I made a statement. It wasn't really a question, and I just said, that no amount of water can keep turfgrass from going dormant when soil temperatures are hot. At a certain point, that hot weather dormancy is going to kick in regardless of whether or not you're pouring the water to it. Yes, there's of course, there's moisture content, has some stuff. I mean, some of the technicians wanted to, look guys, it's 160 characters or 240 characters or whatever it is. I mean, I can't, it created a good discussion. The tweet went around. It had some real play. Again, I'm not necessarily always, I'm not posting that stuff trying to get responses. I just kind of, it's what's in my head at the moment. That was based on a conversation I had with somebody when they called me up and said, how should I be watering in this unseasonable weather, right? Like, well, look, what does your moisture meter say? What is your, we just kind of had that talk, right? And it's like, okay, so my turf is starting to go dormant. says the superintendent, and particularly talking about his annual bluegrass. And he's in an area where annual bluegrass thrives because of the climate. My annual bluegrass is going dormant. Is it going to die? Well, not necessarily. First of all, dormancy is a protective thing. And we should all know that. So I'm not going to get into the physiology of dormancy. But, so I said to him, I said, this particular super uses the TDR. And I said, what does your TDR say? And he was sharing with me that he was rolling around, 15 to 17%. I said, well, isn't that kind of your happy spot? And he said, yeah. He says, but things are going dormant. And I said, so what do you think? You think at 22 to 25%, it won't go dormant? Well, I don't know. And I said, well, try it. And I got the phone call a couple days later and he said, doesn't matter. And I said, that's right. And because we talked about soil temperature and I said, just correlate that with soil temperature. Now, in the Western United States, and again, I've spent most of my career in the Western United States and, in other arid climates, there is this concept of evaporative cooling, right? It's the swamp cooler. I have one at my house here in Denver, this older house, and it does not have central heat and air, but I do fine with it, right? I have the swamp cooler, and the swamp cooler works pretty simply. It pumps water into kind of a filter kind of thing, and then it draws air through the filter and blows it into the house, right? Cool air, evaporative cooling, swamp cooler, evaporative cooling. And it's nice, right? Because it's a dry climate here, so that, it adds a little bit of humidity to my house. My guitars love it. It keeps me from having dried out guitars, and that way I can keep a couple out. The more precious ones are locked away with humidifiers in the cases, but my, some of my daily drivers can sit out and not, because this place will crack a guitar up and warp a neck, pretty badly. So I have that going for me, right? And the swamp cooler works. And it's the same idea. It's like if I have enough moisture underground, and think about it, when you've dug into a sandy soil, what do you get down a little bit lower? But look, there's moisture, right? And it's cooler down there. Shocking. So, we can expect a certain amount of evaporation. I'm not talking about evapotranspiration. ET, different story. Talking about evaporation, right? And from that evaporation, we can get some cooling. All right, why do we put up fans? To promote that air movement, to increase evaporative cooling. It's pretty simple, right? Pretty simple concept. Obviously, we love the air movement, but the air movement also creates a lowering, of canopy temperature. So, we start talking about driving this by the numbers. And I'm always talking to supers because, they call me with great observations. I love it when they call me with great observations. I love that, right? Yeah, tell me what you feel. Tell me what you think. Observation is sometimes a lost art in our business. Yes, it can lead to some gut feelings, and every once in a while, and if you're interpreting that information wrong, it can lead to swinging at some high pitches, and we talk about that too. But this is a passion of mine, right? So I'm going to get straight with you. Listen carefully. You've got to drive these numbers. What are my surface temperatures? What are my soil temperatures? What are my soil temperatures at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., right? And 4, right? The Dr. Pepper thing, 10, 2, and 4, right? What are my soil temperatures? How's it working during the day? What's my moisture content? How's that working? What's my surface temperature? Do you know the time of day that your surface temperature is highest? Do you know the time of day that your soil temperature is highest? Now, here's how it usually works, right? Solar radiation heats the soil, and then eventually the soil's, the Earth's crust, whatever you want to call it, so you're going to have your highest daytime surface temperature, air temperature, surface temperature, soil temperature. Let's talk about it that way. So when we have our highest daytime temperature, I'm going to throw the effects of humidity in a second, but let's just talk temp. We have our highest daytime temperature leads to warming of the earth, leads to rising of soil temperature, right? So I've said for years, that putting water out during that time of highest daytime temperature, air temperature, excuse me, air temperature is incorrect, right? All that's going to lead is to just heating water, from everything else. But, can we get the cooling effects if I wait to possibly apply some water when the soil temperature is high enough? When the soil temperature is at its highest? Yes, the answer is yes. And some people in the West have this idea, and it's a really good one, and it's one that I used myself. This idea that, okay, let's say that I'm going to, and of course, cycle and soak and all that sort of stuff, and the modern irrigation system has really helped all this. But I was a very early adopter of, computer controlled irrigation back in the day, man. And we could set up our cycles. I used to kind of chase the golfers off the golf course, not like chasing them, meaning that, there was a time when people stopped going off the first tee, and we would just put a quick set on to cool that soil temp a little bit, right? I want to build my irrigation in 3 parts. I want to cool, I want to replace, and I want to, insulate, or just top it off, whatever, right? And again, thinking about it, this is before TDRs and all that. So, the idea that we could kind of split things up and do that. So it's led, all of this has led to some great conversations where I've said to people, listen, fly this thing by the numbers. Okay, so you're having some unseasonable weather. You're having weather you haven't seen before. Start figuring out, when are my highest air temperatures? When are my highest surface temperatures? Which now everybody ought to have one of those infrared guns, right? They're cheap. But, $20 on Amazon, whatever. I have one. I have a bunch. I give them away. I don't know. It wasn't expensive. The little gun, point the infrared gun at the surface. Okay. So my air temperature is this, my surface temperature is that. When does the air temperature and the surface temperature cross? When does that high air temperature meet the surface temperature and heat it up? When does that happen? And then soil thermometer, right? In whatever form you want to use. I still prefer the instant read type soil thermometer. You stick it in the ground, you walk around for a second, there's a soil temp. Now they can be digital, whatever. Have one of those. I want to go out and look at some greens. Jump off the cart, stick the thing in, walk around, come back. There it is. There's a temp. Know what those soil temps are. Know what those surface temps are. Know what the air temps are. Figure out how everything crosses, and then come up with a strategy. Many of you will find that panic irrigation, that hose pulling that you want to do before the crew goes home, before the gang goes home, before they go home. Hey guys, get a hose, go out, get your 3 or 4 greens, get your section or whatever, get it wet, right? And the dude's out there and he's, syringing, right? Or hey, I'll just put a turn on the heads here, whatever. That whole thing sometimes can stop evaporative cooling, and it can create a lens. It can create this lens that heats up even more. So figure it out. One of the great devices that really proved this, and there's some of this out there. I think you can search a little bit, but I have a little device that goes on the bottom of my iPhone, made by the company FLIR, right? Forward-looking infrared, FLIR. It's a little FLIR lens and some software, and it will tell you the temperature, based on the color that comes back to it. It's so good. I think that lens, I don't know what they are now. I think the one that I bought was $220, something like that. And you can use it a couple of different ways, take some pictures, and you can see. So okay, so go out with your FLIR, and we did this a bunch, and startling, right? Because you think, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And this is the POA saver or whatever. And I had POA greens in Northern California, one of my places. So it's I loved my POA greens. Later we wanted to integrate as much bent grass in as possible, and that's a subject for another deal. But POA when it's going right, it's a fun surface, right? Yeah, it's a kick-ass surface. It's hard to deny that. It isn't very resilient. It has it comes with all the things that annual bluegrass come from. But in that area, the annual bluegrass was more of a perennial variety. It was a very low grower. It was a beautiful grass, and it's like, oh, I like this. I like what it can do. But riding on that edge wasn't always fun, especially for me when I was doing the no fungicide thing. Anyway, yeah, I digress. The whole idea is that when we got these FLIR cameras, and first I saw it with just an actual FLIR, and then FLIR came out with the attachments for the iPhone. And again, I think everybody ought to have one of these. And so we go out to a green that was heating up, and you feel it. You walk out on the green and you feel it's heating up, and then you see what the air temperature is and all that, and then get a guy on a hose, oops, got the nozzle cooling it off, and you'll see in the FLIR the whole thing will cool off, right? And it's like, oh, winning, right? Get this infrared reaction that's completely different. 5 minutes later, it's hotter than it was before. 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. And I was like, oh my God, like, this doesn't really work. And I think some people like Micah Woods and that have put some data and all that. Now in humid places, humidity makes a whole different thing out of this. First of all, I think let's go back to the swamp cooler thing. I think most people know when you have 90% humidity or whatever, the swamp cooler doesn't do shit. Right? There is no evaporative cooling when the humidity is up high. Even here in Denver, when the humidity comes up, when we're in what we call that monsoon, or in Arizona, the monsoon kind of thing, the evaporative cooler doesn't do as well. So humidity can play a big role in this whole thing. And obviously the very humid places of Southeast Asia and other stuff like that, it completely changes the concept. But one thing is for sure, adding humidity by virtue of a light watering, and what happens, there's a little bit of evaporation on the surface, and all of a sudden it's warmer. The warmth may be more even, right? I may have evened out the whole thing, but it's almost, can be hotter in that area than when we started. Whoops. Syringe, not so good. Years ago, I had some clients, some people I was working with in Arizona, and they just couldn't seem to keep their bent grass happy through the hot days of the summer while other people could. And then it comes down to, it came down to looking at irrigation really hard, looking at the DU, looking at heads that were off the green that were possibly putting water onto the green. And then really the ones that were really in trouble were the ones that were going out with that idea, hey, I'm going to keep things safe. I'm going to pump a little bit of water out. Just, give me that 5 minute set. Give me 2 turns of the heads, right? Whatever. And that just didn't work. And those greens would just sit there in the soup. The humidity would rise and they would overheat. And eventually, really bad things happen. So, back to my July thing, right? Back to what I started with all this. If I'm going to come to your golf course for the first time, and you invite me, or we have a Zoom meeting, whatever, and we're going to talk about your situation, I'm going to ask a ton of questions, right? And it's not so much that I need that answer for myself, because a lot of times I already know the answer. God, that sounded arrogant. Let's just say that experience leads me to understand that sometimes we're in a certain place, right? All right, and I'll say, what are your daytime temperatures like? Oh, well, we've had, highs in this and lows in that. Oh yeah, okay, cool. When do your highs come? What time of day? A lot of people have that answer, right? Click, click, click. Oh, I can see on the graph. Okay, yeah, high temps, somewhere between noon and 2 p.m., whatever, something like that. Cool. What about your surface temperatures? Huh? What, Dave? What are your surface temperatures at 6 a.m.? What are your surface temperatures at that 2 p.m.? What about 4 p.m.? What about sunset? I don't know. Okay, cool. Well, that'll be good. Be a good thing for you to get. Hey, let's talk about an infrared thermometer for you and possibly a couple of your guys. $100 investment. What are your soil temps? Well, I had the thermometer in last week. No. What are your soil temps at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 4 p.m.? Oh, I don't know. Or, again, so now we have technology, right? Some great stuff. You know, the Spio guys, all that sort of thing, right? Okay, let me just look it up. Okay, here it is, right? Here's my soil temps. Okay, cool. So what's your high soil temp? You know, like what time does your highest soil temp happen? It's right here. Okay. What time is your highest air temp? Well, it's right there. Okay, so you can see now there's a correlation, right? Oh, okay. Yeah. Air temperature hot first, surface temperature warms, then soil temperature at 2 inches or whatever. And let's just say 2 inches. Okay, cool. So then when does that start to drop off? When does it start to cool? I don't know. Okay, well, let's find that out next, right? And again, if you have the sensor in the ground or whatever, which, you know, I'm kind of leading to this, you should. Technology is available and it's very easy to use. You know, I don't want to name names, but I'm a fan of all of it, right? It's just great. Get the information, right? Okay, so the sensor says that my soil temps start to fall off at about 10 p.m. 9-ish, you know. Okay, what time is sunset? It says 7:40. Okay, and then like an hour later? Yeah, an hour later, soil temperature. Okay. So you could put out a first irrigation, you know, that would cool things down and stay down because there's no reason, there's no sun, there's nothing else, and you could kind of cool things off a little bit, right? 7, 8, 9 p.m. Well, I like to do all my watering, you know, between 4 and 7 in the morning. Yeah. I know. I get it. That's what's best. But maybe in this situation, you know, when you're having unseasonably warm, unseasonably dry kind of situation, maybe you got to look at this a little differently. So we do that and let's go through it. So when I say, hey, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, I'm not trying to make anybody look stupid, right? That's not it at all. And it's not just for me to have, you know, ego or more information. What I'm doing is, you know, I'm asking these leading type questions that are going to lead you into some, you know, some conversation. And the same thing with your moisture. What does your moisture meter say? What is your, you know, oh, we don't really run them. Well, why not? You know, get a pogo, get a TDR. We'll mention those, right? Get them. Good discussion last week about when the guys use the TDR and when they use the pogo and how that works for them. And I loved it. There's no substitute for data when you're talking about not swinging at high pitches, okay? And then you can start to put some logic to all this and some agronomic, you know, I call it agronomic logic, right? You can put some agronomic logic to your decision making and say, okay, I'm going to get through this period. We're going to do this, this, and this. Again, for those of you in the East, the mid-Atlantic, and the South, you know, it's a different game, but it still has the same rules. When's my air temperature the highest? When's the, you know, all that sort of stuff, right? And we talk about that, the comfort factor, the snot factor for people, you know, and there's people have a bunch of different ways. You know, if I add the high temperature and the humidity together, if I, you know, the feels like temperature, you know, whatever it is, however you want to do that. However it makes sense to you. And then, okay, so now it's not that hard, you know, like, get a spreadsheet going, get a piece of paper going, track this stuff. You know, do it on a piece of graph paper, even. All right, here's my soil temps. This is it. Here's it, you know, and you start to see, okay, there's a trend here. The weather relaxed a little bit, and now look, everything changed. There was a shift. You know, things are happening at a different time, or they're not happening at all, you know, whatever it may be. And now you have real information. And that's how we do it. I mean, I just gave you the heart of my agronomic consulting in the summertime. That's how I do it. I just, you know, we have a conversation, we have a good talk, we ask some good questions, we talk about collecting some data, maybe collecting some more data, I mean, just, you know, and I'm not trying to waste anybody's time. I know you guys are running with your hair on fire, but if you're telling me that if you don't have time to roll up, take your infrared gun, shoot a surface temperature, stick a soil thermometer in the ground, you know, just look everything over. I mean, you know, my rule, every green, every tee, every day, you know, for my guys, right? And then sometimes we would set that up to twice a day, every tee, every green, every fairway, every, you know, twice a day, right? So they would do their checks. Well, have the tools with you. I used to carry a little toolbox, you know, little fishing tackle box or whatever, just, you know, it was in my cart. Zip, zip, zip. Okay, I got this. And a lot of it was just in my head, you know, I wasn't getting it all into spreadsheets and stuff. I mean, I'm not, you know, I wasn't exactly Jason Haynes, but these guys now, there's great tools, you know, now, I mean, you can record this shit in Google, you know, on a Google sheet from a distance and just, you know, zip, 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 right? And the information is right there. So there's tons of ways to do it. Anyway, that's my July, that's my July spiel. And in BC, and in BC. So you're saying that BC has been pretty rough. Yeah. Sorry, I missed that chat thing. I had another window over it. My bad. Also, I'm watching my mouse is about to give out. I think it needs a new battery. This great wireless mouse has a million buttons on it, and let's see. I don't. You can see there's like 6 buttons over here, and it's just great. But it's kind of a battery hog. So that's good. All right, so that's my spiel for today. Hope that you put some thinking to your whole thing. And for those of you that are dealing with this insane, unseasonably record heat kind of stuff, you know, just like no panicking, okay? Yeah, so the guys are asking about smoke. Let me see this. Smoke causing problems. It's a bright sunny day, but with the smoke. Yeah, so smoke. We went through this in Northern California a few times, and in some other places I've been through it, and the superintendents were like, what do I do? Like, you know, it's hot, but it's smoky, and what does the smoke do for me? And it's like, hey, you got to run the numbers, and there's where ET can tell you a lot. And I don't always love ET because I don't love how that goes. If you have a small crew, what minimum daily data do you acquire? Okay, first of all, that's a great question. First of all, let me go back to the smoke thing, and we'll get to that. Here's where ET really comes in, because solar radiation plays such a big deal into the ET calculation. Wind run, solar radiation, all those things are huge in the evapotranspiration curve. And so you can really, if you're really sucked in with smoke, but the temperatures are up, you've got to make some decisions about what's really happening to your turf. Again, moisture replacement, moisture meter, all that sort of stuff. You know, there's a lot to that. Yes, it leads to less ET, and that's a good indicator. So yeah, fantastic observation. Okay, let's get to this question that Justin posted. Got a small crew. What's the minimum daily data you require? Okay, so first of all, you know, for not too much money, you can get a, Jesus. Now, I mean, you can get a really, you get a nice Davis Instruments or whatever, small weather station. Even if you don't have anything hooked up to your central or whatever, you can get some data collection from highs, lows, humidity. Really easy. Stick it up. Follow the directions. Right? I mean, now they wire, now they can be wireless technology. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. Somebody was telling me about one the other day that they stuck it out on the golf course. I think they powered it from a controller, but they have to go near it to download its data, right? Just like Bluetooth kind of thing, right? So that exists. So there's one way. Like I want to know my highs, my lows, my humidity, my wind run, my wind speed. That, right? Simple. Then, always be checking ABCs, right? Always be checking, and you have a soil temperature thermometer with you, and you're just sticking it in whenever you walk in the rain. Stick it in, walk around, do what you got, come back, read it, record it, take a picture of it, whatever, you know. Simple. And I want to start to generate, you know, what my situation looks like. So maybe I see my soil temperatures at 6 a.m. Oh, what do I have on? I have like some kind of blue dye, and I don't spray anything anymore. So 6 a.m., 10 a.m., noon, 2 p.m., you know, find those spots. You'll find it eventually. Say, okay, my soil temperature here at this particular property starts to rise at, and it's at lowest at, and it's at highest at, and start to track that, right? Simple. And then service temp, you know, with your infrared thing. $29. Even less, I think now. I think they're even cheaper. I don't know. I have mine is a Fluke. I think it was a little more expensive, but I don't know why I bought it. I think just because I'm brand conscious. I don't know. There's a ton of them. Okay, again, what's my service temperature? You know, first thing in the morning, what is it like as my air temperature rises? And then you start to correlate this, right? So you don't need a big crew to do all this. This is something you can do yourself. This is agronomy 101. This is superintendenting 101. Well, Dave, you know, I got to spend my time and, you know, talking to the GM to, okay, well, figure it out. You know, like I'm, you know, okay, if you're doing that, if you're kind of more of a director of agronomy type, then clearly you've got to have people underneath you. You know, give it to one of the crew guys. Give it to one of the young people. Say, hey, listen, I need you to do this for me. Okay, here's a soil thermometer. I want you to go to this screen, that screen, this screen, because you know your hot spots and your cool spots, right? So figure that out, and just get me some soil temps readings. Write it down on this piece of paper. Put it on my desk. Right? So yeah, that's it, and then pretty soon you say, okay, I know that my high soil temps, you know, are usually this. Okay, fine. So this is the time of day when we go stick the thermometer in the ground on these 2 grains. And this is the time of day that we check it when we first go out in the morning. You will figure it out. You will figure it out. And then you can say, I can fly this ship now because I have the data, right? I'm now flying my instruments, right? I can fly an airplane through the clouds because I know how to look at my instruments. Okay, so the question is, I have a pogo, just wondering how you would best use it. Well, I love pogos, first of all, and data in, data out. I'm sure that Carmen and company have some ideas, but for me, you know, I'd have that pogo in my hand when I first get out in the morning and on the greens. I'd want to know what my irrigation cycle, you know, because conductivity plays into that thing, and, you know, moisture. I want to know what my irrigation cycle's done for me. What's my morning moisture? And then what's my dry down look like? That's going to give you all that information. So, you know, again, at first, you're probably going to overuse the thing. You're going to create a lot of data. You know, as somebody was telling me the other day, they put in sensors and they became completely obsessed with looking at the sensor data constantly. And I get it. I would be the same way. I'm like, oh, I want to know. So yeah, I would use my pogo. I would have that thing would be in my hands in the early morning. It would be in my hands in the midday, and be in my hands in the early evening. And I'd try to figure out what those numbers look like. And because it can collect all that, and because it can go to your phone and all that, you know, it's a great thing. Great tool. Great tool. I think the TDR probably is a little bit more friendly for the, you know, for the guys out in the field, because they can, you know, it's quick and everything, and the pogo maybe takes a little bit more skill and a little bit more time, you know, to download. Somebody posted the other day that they use both. Like they as the super have their pogo with them, and then the guys are using, the assistants are using the TDR, and they kind of come, you know, have some agreement there. That's cool, right? So I hope that answers that question. Not here to talk about any specific products or anything like that. And even if we were being sponsored, I would be very clear, you know, how I would do that. But I'll tell you something, and this frustrates the hell out of me. somebody calls and Dave, I want to talk through this with you. We talk, I don't know, I have different ways that I charge now because, hey, we were doing the COVID thing. I'm not on the airplanes like I used to be. And it's great for some people because there's some clubs that we're just never going to be able to fly me out there, right? Or they're in places where it's like, yeah, you're not near anybody or anything. But we can have a Zoom conversation. We can figure out, an hourly rate or whatever, those kind of things. So that's how that's how I've been doing it. What I do is, I want to have a relationship with somebody. I don't want them to not use me because there's, we get the finances worked out. Everyone tells me I'm incredibly generous with my time. So anyway, the whole point being is that, I want you to collect this stuff. And if it's overwhelming you and you don't know, what do I do with this? Well, then, let's talk about it. And let's figure it out. And I think there's a lot of people that are, they're doing great. They're just trying to, I think what it is, and someone said this, you know what, this is what it is. Somebody said this to me. Somebody said this to me recently. They said, I guess I never really made decisions with this kind of stuff. And now as I'm starting to look at it, I'm realizing that I made a lot of bad decisions or incorrect decisions. I don't know about bad decisions. Be more positive with yourselves. But I made some incorrect decisions in my past. And it's hard to erase that kind of muscle memory, And I think the common one is that, I have to send the brigade out, right after lunch with the hoses. And I start to realize, man, that, that whole idea that I had of syringing and keeping things safe, and it wasn't helping me at all. It's a big thing. It's a very big thing. All right. I'm looking at chat. Anybody else have anything else before we, it's time to wind this up. Anybody got anything that they want to toss out? I'm here for you. And as always, my Twitter account, Turfgrass Zealot. Find me there, DM me there. We get a lot of great DMs, all that sort of stuff. Happy always to take that stuff. And again, like I said at the start of today's thing, I am overwhelmed at the support that we're receiving for my individual effort. And again, not super focused on the numbers, but I can see them. I can see when people are watching. I can not when people, I see that people are watching. I see, that kind of stuff, and it's really cool. So thank you. All right. I don't see anything else in chat. I think we're gonna, before my mouse gives up, we'll end this. It's been a great day. It's been a great week. I'm excited about some of the things that are going on in the world, in my life, and your lives. And I love it when y'all share with me your good, your bad, and the ugly. And I promise I'll do the same. My name's Dave Wilber. My friends call me the Turfgrass Zealot. And will I still travel to consult? Of course. Yeah, but it's a little different. It's a little different now. So many times, here's the question, great question, by the way. Justin, full of great questions. Of course I will. But I think, years ago when I first built my consulting model, we barely had digital cameras. So somebody would call me and say, my turf's getting yellow. I didn't know what that was, right? So I had to go out and look at it myself, things like that. And quite frankly, sometimes, and so for some people that had it in the budget, is no big deal. It's like, Dave comes out for a day visit, a half day visit, or this is, it's a good day, right? It's fun. I'm going to make it fun. I'm going to make it educational. We're going to do some cool stuff. We're going to hang out. I'm going to wear you out. Your brain's going to melt by the time I leave. I'm going to have left it all on the table. I would go back to the hotel just spent, right? Used up all my words and all my ideas, and I'm giving everything I can give. And that's good, but we can do that with other mediums now. We have other options to do that. And people are starting to see that. So a a FaceTime call, a Zoom meeting, you know, those sorts of things can be super valuable for the same reasons. I had a great one the other day. I had a super, and his assistants and interns wanted to talk about their culture in their organization. And we did a Zoom meeting and I led a little discussion with them, and they kind of crowded around a camera and, you know, and we just had a conversation about like, what does it look like, you know, to have an effective team? And it's great, right? Now, sure, I would have loved to have been in that room. It would have been great to be in that room. I would have loved, especially this particular place, like, right, it'd have been cool. But, you know, it would have cost them 10 times more than what they paid. So, and we got the same result, right? If not better. So this is the time that we live in. We got to look at all that. But of course, you know, I'm still going to do some travel, and I'm still going to, you know, and I'm again, I have said a little bit about kind of being some semi-retired. I don't know that is ever really the, I don't know. I don't want to say that word. I'm just not. I think this COVID forced a real look for all of us, and me included, to look at our worlds and say, okay, what's different? What needs to be different? So there's all that. But for the people that, you know, for the people that want me, need me, have to have me, I'm available in multiple ways. I might even sneak into your dreams and knock on your head like a little, you know, hey. All right, you guys, I think that's it. I'm Dave Wilber. My friends call me the Turfgrass Zealot. And coming to you on a weekly basis has been a riot. So please take care of yourselves. Please look after yourselves, your health, mentally and physically, and I will speak to you later. Take care.